She stole my name, my voice, my face, and then had the nerve to call me crazy. God, I still remember the first time I heard her say it. She looked me dead in the eyes, tilted her head like she pitied me, and whispered, "You need help. You're not well," like I wasn't standing there, shaking, unraveling, begging her to stop. It's strange, isn't it? To watch someone become you, to watch them slip into your skin, wear your smile, say the things you used to say, love the people you loved, only better, cleaner, louder, smarter, more believable. And then, somehow, you become the imposter. I didn't see it coming. Not at first. We were close, really close. Like sharing secrets in the dark, kind of close. She used to call me her mirror, said we were like reflections of each other, that she always wished she had my voice, the way people listened when I spoke. I thought it was sweet, back then, back when I thought admiration meant safety. But admiration turns into something else when you're not looking. It curdles, twists, becomes something uglier. It starts small, borrowing a sweater, mimicking a laugh, using the same words. You tell yourself it's flattery. You laugh it off. You don't notice that you're starting to shrink while they're learning to grow into you. I noticed too late. By the time I realized what she was doing, what she was, I was already the one who looked unhinged. Already. The one who was screaming into the void while everyone else smiled politely and asked if I was doing okay. You don't know what it feels like to be erased while still being alive. To walk into a room and feel the air shift because she was just there. And she told them something about you. And now they're looking at you through her eyes, not yours. And the worst part, she didn't need to lie. All she had to do was say it differently, softer. With that voice she copied from me. People love pretty stories. Told in prettier voices, they don't care if it's true. I still ask myself how it happened. Not just the facts. I know the timeline now too well. But the why. Why her? Why me? Why then? Why didn't I see it when she first started reshaping my life into her own image? I want to say it was all at once. This explosion, this sudden betrayal. But no. It was like water leaking through the ceiling. Slow, silent, until one day, everything collapsed. There are nights I sit in the dark and go over every word we ever said to each other, looking for the crack. The moment she stopped being my friend and started becoming my thief. Do you know how disorienting it is to lose your identity? Not to trauma, not to a breakdown, but to someone else deciding they deserve to live your life more than you do. She took everything that made me me, my words, my work, my people, and when I tried to scream, she told the world I was unwell, unstable, dangerous. And they believed her. Because who would you trust? The calm, collected one with perfect explanations, or the frantic girl crying in the back, saying that's mine, that's mine, that's mine, with no proof left to show for it. So I stopped fighting. At least on the outside. But inside, I've never stopped screaming. Tell me something. How do you prove you're you, when the only version of you anyone sees is the one she's already stolen? I remember the first time I met her. She was magnetic. Not in that loud, obvious way. Not the kind of person who walks in and turns every head. No, she was quieter. The kind of quiet that makes you lean in just to hear her speak. And when she did, it was like she knew things. About people. About the room. About you. I met her at a workshop of all places. Some forgettable weekend seminar on branding or storytelling. I don't even remember what they called it. But I remember her. She sat across from me, sipping coffee she didn't pay for, and scribbling in a notebook like it was her diary. I remember she looked up at me, smiled, and said, "You look like someone who writes sad things." And I laughed, because it was true. And she saw it in me, just like that. That's how it started. Not with fireworks, not with warnings, just to women, orbiting the same space, sharing ideas and cheap sandwiches in parking lots. She made me feel seen. And God, at that point in my life, I needed that more than I realized. Back then, I didn't have many people, a few colleagues, sure, a couple of old friends who drifted into other chapters. I was still figuring out who I was, post-breakup, mid-career limbo, family stuff hanging in the background like fog. So, when she came into my life with all that effortless energy, it felt like the universe finally threw me a lifeline. We started spending more time together. She'd show up unannounced with coffee, or text me quotes from books she thought I'd like. We talked about everything, late-night calls, voice notes at 2 a.m., poems we never showed anyone else. We were each other's safe space. At least, that's what I thought. I let her into the softest parts of me. Told her things I hadn't said out loud in years. The kind of truths you don't even write down, because writing them makes them real. She listened like she carried my pain in her chest. And when she cried for me, oh, I thought that was love. I thought she cared. We used to joke that we were the halves of the same soul. Stupid, right? But it felt true. She finished my sentences, guessed my thoughts before I said them. She knew when I was spiraling, when I needed space, when I wanted someone to sit beside me in silence. She knew me. Or at least, it seemed like she did. I didn't notice how much she absorbed. How often she repeated my words back to me, just slightly altered. How she started dressing more like me, reading the same books, following the same accounts. At first, I thought it was synchronicity, soul friend stuff, the kind of bond that doesn't need explanation. But now I wonder if that's when she started studying me. God, I look back at those days with this weird ache, because I miss it. I miss her, or the version of her I thought was real. The one who showed up when I didn't ask. Who remembered the name of the boy who broke my heart and hated Jaime's it happened to her. The one who cheered the loudest when I got published. Who told me my voice mattered. Who said she'd protect me from anyone who tried to dim me. She said she loved me like a sister, and I believed her. I let her braid herself into the fabric of my life, stitch by stitch, until I couldn't tell where she ended and I began. She was there for all my wins, and every time I stumbled, she was the person I texted when I felt empty. The one who sent me long voice notes about how I deserved everything good. And I believed her. I think that's what hurts the most now. That before part, the calm, the comfort, the illusion that I had someone who would never hurt me. Because when it all fell apart, when she started tearing pieces of me out to wear as her own, I kept thinking, but she loved me, didn't she? I still don't know the answer. Was any of it real? Did she ever care? Even a little? Or was I always just the blueprint? I don't even remember what I said. Isn't that the worst part? The thing that started it all. The moment where everything tilted just slightly off center. I don't remember, but she does. God, she remembers it like scripture. She told me later, months after everything had already started rotting. It was that day at the cafe, when you said I'd never make it on my own. That's when I knew you weren't really for me. And I just stared at her, blinking, heart pounding, trying to reach into the memory she was holding so tightly. And I couldn't find it. Not like that. Not with that venom. I mean, maybe I did say something close. Something careless. Maybe I was tired, distracted. In one of those cynical moods I slip into when I'm scared and don't want anyone to see it. But I never meant it like that. I never meant to hurt her. I think back to that day. We were sitting at our usual spot, corner table, chipped wood, coffee with oat milk. She was rambling, dreamily, about starting a podcast, said she. Wanted to tell stories like mine, raw, emotional, unfiltered. She even asked if I'd help write the first few episodes. Said my voice was authentic. And I don't know. I must have laughed. Not to mock her. Just out of disbelief. Not because I didn't believe in her, but because it scared me. The way she wanted so badly to become me. I think I said something like, you know, this stuff isn't as easy as it sounds. People think they want to be vulnerable, but when the silence hits back, it breaks you. Maybe I said more. Maybe something slipped. Maybe I did say she wasn't ready. But it wasn't cruelty. It was fear. Fear that she'd get swallowed by the same darkness I'd barely clawed my way out of. But she didn't hear it that way. She heard it as doubt, as judgment, as me putting her back in her box. And the worst part? She didn't push back. She just nodded, smiled a little, stirred her coffee, and I thought everything was fine. But that was the day something shifted. Quietly, fatally. She stopped asking me to edit her poems, started spending more time with people I introduced her to, slipped into conversations I started and made them hers. I remember watching her one night at a reading I invited her to. She stood on that little stage, reading lines I swore sounded familiar, phrases I'd once written in my journals, turns of phrase that I used when I couldn't find air. And when I confronted her, gently, confused, she just smiled and said, maybe we're just more alike than you think. And I let it go. Because I didn't want to be the paranoid one, the jealous friend, the insecure artist. I didn't want to believe that someone I trusted was mimicking me. So I blamed myself. That was the mistake. Right there. Not the comment at the cafe. Not the doubt in my voice. The real mistake was not listening to the knot in my stomach that said, Something's wrong. The real mistake was gaslighting myself long before she ever did. Every time she posted something that felt like mine, every time she showed up wearing something I wore the week before, every time she parroted a story I told her in confidence and made it sound like hers, I swallowed it, smiled, told me I was imagining it because I loved her, because I trusted her, because that's what you do when someone calls you their sister. You give them the benefit of the doubt, even as they carve your voice out of your throat. And by the time I realized I was bleeding, she was already walking around in my skin. But it all goes back to that day, that moment, that single flicker of doubt, maybe even arrogance, when I let my fear speak louder than my love. I didn't mean it to wound her, but words don't care about intention, do they? They land where they land, and sometimes they crack something open you can't ever seal shut again. I still ask myself, if I had said it differently, if I had wrapped it in more tenderness, would she have chosen a different path? Would she have stayed my friend, instead of becoming my shadow? After that day, it was like I was watching a slow eclipse. Everything I loved started disappearing, but not all at once, just one soft shadow at a time. She didn't stop calling, not right away. She didn't confront me or scream or even tell me she was hurt. She just started adjusting things, slipping through the cracks of my life, rearranging the furniture, smiling while she did it. At first, it was little things. She stopped laughing at my jokes, didn't text me back as fast, started tagging other people in posts that felt like they should have been ours. I told myself we were just growing apart, that friendships evolve, that nothing's wrong. But deep down, I knew better. Something had ruptured, and neither of us was saying it out loud. Then came the silence. Not full silence, no. She was too smart for that. It was the kind that hums underneath conversation, polite, hollow. The kind that makes your skin itch when you hear her voice. We'd talk, and I'd feel like I was being measured. We'd meet for coffee, and she'd tilt her head like she was studying me, as if taking notes for a part. She was preparing to play. She started telling my stories, on panels, in podcasts, and captions beneath moody black and white photos. Stories I had lived, bled through, now polished and rewritten in her voice, like she'd found them floating in the ether. I remember scrolling through her feed one night and stopping cold. A photo of her holding the exact book I'd lent her, quoting a line I'd written, with a caption that said, "Some stories choose you." I couldn't breathe. I just sat there staring, hands shaking, screen glowing bright in the dark. She hadn't tagged me, hadn't referenced me, but I knew. That story was mine. I confronted her. I finally broke, texted her something long, messy, emotional, told her I felt erased, told her it hurt. It felt like she was trying to become me. She replied to hours later. One line, "You really need to talk to someone. This paranoia isn't healthy." And just like that, I became the unstable one. She didn't defend herself, didn't deny it. She didn't need to. All she had to do was plant the idea that I was unraveling, and it worked. Our mutuals started pulling away. People who once celebrated my voice stopped replying to my work. Doors that were open suddenly weren't. I remember one person, someone I'd mentored, said, "You and she are kind of the same anyway. It's hard to tell where one ends and the other begins." And I wanted to scream, "No, I'm the original. She's the echo." But I didn't, because by then, I'd started to question it myself. What if I was being dramatic? What if I was just bitter? What if I had imagined the whole thing? That's how gaslighting works. It doesn't start with them telling you you're crazy. It starts with you wondering if maybe they're right. I started shrinking, pulled my work offline, stopped performing, stifled my voice before she could take more of it. And the more I disappeared, the louder she became. She got invited to speak at a conference I'd applied for, wore a dress I once lent her, stood on that stage, talking about finding your truth, while wearing mine like a trophy, and everyone clapped. I don't think I've ever felt so invisible. There were days I'd lie on the floor and whisper to myself, "You're real. You're not crazy. You were here first, just to feel something anchor me." But it didn't work. Because nothing sticks when no one else remembers you. That's the fallout, not some big explosion. Just the steady fading of your reflection until you're nothing but the outline of someone else's success story. And still, I missed her. I missed the way she used to say my name. The way we used to stay up all night talking about dreams and fears. The way I thought we were magic, too. Broken women who found safety in each other. But maybe she was never looking for safety. Maybe she was just looking for raw material, and I made the fatal mistake of giving her mine. There were nights I couldn't sleep. Not because of the memories, but because I started to forget them. Like, I try to remember the sound of my own voice before she started using it. I try to recall a sentence I once wrote and panic when I saw it on her page instead, tweaked, polished, but still mine, like a photograph someone filtered beyond recognition. And then I'd wonder, was it ever mine at all? That's what happens when someone steals your identity in slow motion. You don't just lose your name, you lose your sense of self. You look in the mirror and think, am I the version everyone left behind? Am I the broken draft that got deleted? I used to be proud of what I created, of the way I wrote about pain, honestly, openly, without hiding the mess. I didn't care about being perfect. I just wanted to be real. But after her, everything I wrote started to sound like an imitation of her imitating me. I couldn't write a sentence without hearing her voice say it back. Couldn't post a photo without wondering if she'd copy the angle, the filter, the caption. She haunted me, not like a ghost, but like a mirror that wouldn't break. And I hated that I still cared. I hated that I still checked her page, that I'd search her name just to see if she was quoting something that came from my bones, that I'd scroll through the comments, heart pounding, watching people praise her for being raw, vulnerable, real, that used to be my word. I spiraled, quietly, shamefully. I stopped showing up to events, avoided mutual friends, declined interviews. I told people I was taking time to rest, but the truth was, I didn't know who I was anymore without an audience, and that scared me. Was my voice only real if someone else heard it? Was I still a writer if no one was reading? Was I still me if she got all the credit for being me better? Some nights I talked to myself out loud just to hear something that hadn't been edited, posted, applauded. I'd lie on the floor of my apartment, lights off, windows open, and whisper old poems. The ones I never shared, the ones that still felt like mine. I think I was trying to stitch myself back together with words no one had touched but me. But it didn't always work. There were nights I felt like a ghost, not dead, just forgotten. Like I'd left my body somewhere, and someone else picked it up and wore it to a party I wasn't invited to. And still, even in the middle of all that pain, I missed her. I know how pathetic that sounds. Believe me, I hate that part of this. But I miss the before. Miss the way she used to laugh when I ranted about the world. Miss the nights we stayed up talking about who we wanted to become. I miss being believed. I miss the version of myself I used to be around her, before the pretending started, before the copying, before I was rewritten. There were moments, fleeting, disorienting, where I wondered if maybe I deserved it. Maybe I had been too proud of my voice, too public with my pain, too trusting with my truth. Maybe I had opened the door too wide. Maybe I had handed her the map, and then I'd hate myself for even thinking that, because it wasn't my fault. I know that now, but knowing and believing are not the same thing. Some days I still feel like I'm chasing a version of myself I'll never get back. The one before her. The one who believed in connection. The one who didn't flinch when someone said they admired me. I don't trust easily anymore. Not just other people, but my own instincts. I question every compliment, every new friendship, every ounce of inspiration that bubbles up in me. Because what if it's not mine? What if she left something inside me that still echoes, sometimes? I look at myself in the mirror and ask, are you even real anymore? Or are you just the negative space she left behind? I want to believe I'm more than what she took. I want to believe there's still something pure in me, unborrowed, unfiltered, untouched. But some days, that belief feels paper thin, and I sit in that silence, wrapped in all the versions of me that no longer exist, trying to figure out how to start again without starting over. I wish I could tell you there was a clean ending, that we sat across from each other one last time, said everything that needed to be said, and walked away with our heads held high. But real endings don't work like that. They bleed. They rot. They stay unfinished. There was no big blow up. No screaming match. No dramatic unfollowing. Just a quiet unraveling. I stopped answering her text, and she stopped sending them. And that was that. I kept waiting for her to reach out, not with excuses, not with fake apologies, but with truth, with something real, something human. I wanted her to say, I see what I did. I know I hurt you. I'm sorry I became you instead of loving you. But that never came. What did come was her book, a memoir. Not mine. Hers. Only, page after page. I found pieces of myself tucked between her chapters, private things. Things I told her in whispered confessions, in tear-stained voicemails, in half-drunk nights when I let my guard down. She wrote about them, not as me, but as her. My pain, my words, my story in her voice. and the world loved it. They called her brave, raw, genius, a fresh voice of a generation. I read every review, every glowing post, every quote pulled from pages I couldn't bring myself to finish. And I didn't cry, not at first. I just sat there, numbed out like I was watching someone else live a life I forgot to hold on to. She didn't just take my voice, she thrived in it. And me? I was still sitting on the floor, still whispering poems to myself in the dark, still wondering if I even mattered anymore. I didn't fight back. I didn't sue. Didn't call her out because by then no one would have believed me anyway. She had done it too well, to clean, to publicly. And if I spoke now, if I tried to claw my truth out of her story, I just looked bitter, jealous, broken. So I stayed quiet. People ask why I disappeared, why I don't post anymore, why I stopped reading at events, or writing, or trying. And I don't know how to answer that without unraveling. Because how do you explain that your identity was stolen while you were still breathing? How do you explain that someone looked at the most vulnerable parts of you and decided they could wear them better? And they did. I wish I could hate her. It would be easier, cleaner. But sometimes I still miss her. Or, I don't know. I miss the version of her that existed before the taking, before the lies, before she looked me in the eyes and said, "You're not well." I think about that line a lot. The way she said it, the softness in her voice, like she was trying to save me, while she was already stealing the last of what I had left. It broke something in me, because that's what she does. She makes you doubt yourself, then takes the pieces you drop and calls it art. And the worst part, she's not the villain in her story. I am the jealous friend, the one who couldn't handle her success, the unstable girl who couldn't let go. That's how they remember me now. Not as the one who built something honest, not as the one who bled first, just the one who disappeared. I walk around these days trying to rebuild. Tiny steps, private work. But it's hard to grow when the soil you planted your voice in has already been paved over. I don't know if I'll ever feel whole again. I don't know if my words will ever sound like mine again. But I do know this: she can have the spotlight. She can have the applause, the articles, the praise, because what she'll never have is the ache behind the story. She can perform the wound, but she'll never carry the scar. And that, somehow, hurts even more. It's been 3 years, 3 birthdays, 3 winters, 3 slow summers where I tried to forget the sound of her voice wrapped around my words. And I wish I could tell you that time healed it, that the pain dulled, that I moved on, that I found peace. But healing isn't clean. It's not some straight line or quiet release. It's messy, crooked, a series of steps forward, then weeks of falling back into that old, familiar grief. Some days I'm fine. I wake up, open the windows, and make coffee without thinking of her. I write a little, just for me. No posting, no sharing, just ink on a page no one else will see. And for a moment, I feel whole again. Other days, it comes back like a cough that won't clear. I'll be reading an article, scrolling through a feed, and there she is, her name, her voice, her version of our story. Still living, still praised, still performed. And I freeze. My chest tightens, like I'm being pulled back under the water I've been clawing my way out of. There's this one interview she did. I shouldn't have watched it, but of course, I did. And she said something like, "We all have a little madness inside us. I just try to tell the truth through mine." And I laughed, bitter, tired, because I remember saying that to her, drunk, years ago, on my couch, when I still thought she was my friend, when I still believed that sharing my brokenness was a safe thing to do. Now I write in margins, in notebooks with no titles. I don't share anymore, not the way I used to. And people have noticed. Friends ask, "Why do you stop putting yourself out there? Why do you go quiet?" But how do you explain it? How do you tell someone that you stopped speaking because every time you open your mouth, you were afraid your voice would sound like hers? I lost more than just a friendship. I lost the right to be myself in public. Even now, I hesitate. When people compliment me, there's a voice in the back of my mind that whispers they don't mean you. They mean the version of you she built. And I hate that. I hate that she still lives in my head, rent-free, smiling. But I've also learned things. Hard, sharp, necessary things. I've learned how to protect my silence. How to hold my truth close, without letting it rot. How to trust the quiet voice inside me again. The one she didn't get to take. I've learned that some people don't want to love you. They want to consume you, to wear you like armor, to feed on your softness and call it survival. And I've learned that being seen isn't always safe. That sometimes the people who clap the loudest, they are just waiting to take your seat. But I've also learned that I'm still here, despite it all, despite her, despite the erasure, the manipulation, the silence. I'm still here. Not the same, not unscarred, but real, and that means something. I don't think I'll ever fully let it go. There's too much damage, too many echoes, but I'm learning to live with it, to carry the weight without letting it crush me. And maybe that's what healing looks like. Not forgetting, not forgiving, just surviving, reclaiming. And on some quiet night, when the air is still and the world isn't watching, maybe I'll read my words out loud again, just for me, just to prove they still belong to me. And maybe that'll be enough. Maybe that's where I begin again.